Okay, so you know how sometimes you see these couples and you think like, wow, they have it all together.
Oh, yeah.
Like picture perfect, you know,
Right.
Instagram family photos, invited to all the cool
They're a
parties.
unique couple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But have you ever wondered like what's really going on
Behind closed doors.
right behind closed doors when it's just the two of them?
Yeah, totally.
And, we came across a couple of stories actually that kind of illustrate this point.
Oh, interesting.
Um, One guy was telling his wife he loved her, just pouring his heart out. And she
Hmm.
basically said, like, you're crazy. Like, you don't even see how stressed I am.
Oh,
And then there was another guy who felt like his wife just turned into this, like, negative person after they got married,
right.
even though he was constantly telling her he loved her.
That's so interesting because it really makes you wonder, like, is there something deeper going on here?
Yeah, is it just a matter of, like, they're not compatible or
Right. Or is it just like a communication breakdown?
exactly? And that's where this whole idea of love languages comes in,
Yeah.
which is what we're diving deep into today.
I'm excited to unpack this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So the basic premise here, and this is according to our source material,
Hmm.
is that a lot of the conflict and the disconnect and the feeling unloved, even when someone is trying to show you love, comes down to the fact that we're essentially speaking different languages when it comes to love.
Right. It's like you're trying to tell someone you care about them, but you're speaking English and they only understand Spanish. You
Exactly.
could be saying all the right things, but the message is totally lost in translation.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to have a heart-to-heart, but it's just not landing.
Totally. And that's the crux of it. The source material emphasizes that we have primary love languages, just like we have primary spoken languages.
Yep.
It's the way we most naturally give and receive love. And it's often developed early on in life, shaped by our families and experiences.
Right, it's like our default setting for love.
Exactly. And just like learning any new language, learning a new love language takes effort and practice.
But it's possible.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally achievable, and the rewards are huge.
So for our listeners out there, whether you're in a relationship right now or you're reflecting on past ones,
Or even just thinking about your relationships with family or friends.
yeah, any kind of close relationship, really understanding these love languages can be such a game changer.
Totally. It can help you make sense of why certain things worked or didn't work in the past.
And more importantly, it can give you the tools to build stronger, more fulfilling relationships in the future.
Exactly, because it's like having a cheat sheet to understanding what your partner really needs from you to feel loved and appreciated.
And also what you need to feel loved and appreciated.
Yes, definitely. So let's dive into these love languages. The source material identifies 5 specific ones.
Okay, lay them on us.
We've got words of affirmation, quality time receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch.
5 different ways of saying, I love you.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that while all of these can be expressions of love, people tend to have a primary one that speaks to them the most.
So knowing your own primary love language and your partner's can be incredibly valuable in creating that sense of deep connection and understanding.
Absolutely. So, with all of this in mind, let's start by unpacking this word love.
Okay, love, love, love. It's a word we throw around all the time.
It is.
But what does it actually mean?
Right, because our source material points out that it's incredibly ambiguous.
That's a loaded term.
Yeah, like people use it to justify all sorts of behaviors, sometimes even harmful ones.
Oh, yeah, like you were saying earlier about infidelity.
Right, like, I love you, but I cheated, or I hit you because I love you, or even something like, I spoil my kids because I love them.
Right, like love can be used as an excuse for all sorts of messed up stuff.
Absolutely. And the book really drives home the point that just saying, I did it out of love, doesn't automatically make it a loving act.
It's not a free pass.
Exactly. It's about the impact on the other person.
So intention versus impact.
Precisely. And the source shares this heartbreaking story about Ashley, a 13-year-old girl who got an STD.
Oh, gosh, that's awful.
Her parents were devastated, but when the author dug deeper into Ashley's story, it became clear that she was deeply insecure and felt unloved. Her parents had divorced when she was young, and she felt abandoned by her father.
Oh, I see.
And even though her mom remarried and seemed happy, Ashley still felt this void, this emptiness.
Like her emotional needs weren't being met.
Exactly. And this need for love and connection became so strong that she sought it out in a way that ultimately put her health at risk.
That's so sad. But it really highlights how universal this need for love is.
It does. And it doesn't just magically disappear when we become adults.
Right, we carry it with us into our romantic relationships, our friendships, our families.
And if that need isn't being met, it can lead to all sorts of problems.
Absolutely. The book quotes one man asking, What good is the house, the cars, all the stuff if your wife doesn't love you?
Right, like all the material possessions in the world can't fill that emotional void.
And then there's the wife who says, he ignores me all day and then expects me to jump into bed with him. I hate it.
It's not about the physical intimacy itself, it's about the lack of emotional connection.
It's like she's craving that attention, that feeling of being seen and cherished.
Exactly. So this brings us to another really important point that the source material delves into the
Yeah.
whole falling in love phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, those butterflies in your stomach, can't eat, can't sleep kind of love.
Exactly. It's this euphoric, intoxicating experience, almost like an obsession.
Like, remember Janice? She was head over heels for this guy, David.
Oh, Janice. Yeah, she was practically floating on air despite the fact that David had been married twice before, had 3 kids, and his job situation was, well, less than ideal.
Red flags galore.
But to Janice, he was perfect.
Love is blind, as they say.
Right, and the source material goes on to describe the hallmarks of this in-love experience.
Okay, so what makes it so unique?
Well, it's characterized by intense emotional obsession. You're constantly thinking about the other person.
Like you can't get them out of your head.
Exactly, and spending time together feels like you're in the anteroom of heaven.
Wow. That's a pretty powerful image.
It is, and there's a strong illusion that the beloved is utterly flawless.
Even if everyone else can see their flaws.
Precisely, and many couples enter marriage riding this wave of euphoria, convinced that their love will conquer all.
But here's the catch, and this is based on research by Dr. Dorothy Tenoff.
Okay.
This intense romantic obsession has an average lifespan of about 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, that's it.
That's kind of a bummer.
It is, because it's like you're living in this bubble and then pop.
Right, and the source material explains what happens when that bubble bursts.
So what goes down?
Well, the illusion of perfection starts to fade.
Yeah.
You start seeing your partner's flaws more clearly. Those little quirks that were once endearing become annoying.
Yeah, you start to realize they're human after all.
Exactly, and your own needs and desires reemerge.
It's like you're coming out of a fog.
And this is where a lot of couples hit a crossroads.
They panic and think the love is gone.
Right, and some couples withdraw from each other or even separate.
Ah.
But other couples choose to do the hard work of learning to love each other without that constant euphoria.
So it's like transitioning from that initial infatuation to a deeper, more mature love.
Precisely, and the source material really emphasizes this point that the in-love feeling wasn't meant to last forever.
Okay.
It was like the initial spark that ignited the fire.
Right, like kindling.
Exactly. But the real fuel for a lasting relationship is a different kind of love.
What kind is that?
It's rational, volitional love, a conscious choice to love your partner every day.
So it's not about the feeling, it's about the action.
Precisely, and that's where the 5 love languages come in.
Okay, so let's dive into those. Let's start with words of affirmation.
Perfect. So words of affirmation is all about expressing love verbally.
So compliments, encouraging words, basically telling your partner how much you appreciate them.
Exactly, and it's not just about grand gestures either. It's about the little things, too.
Like leaving a note saying, I love you, or have a great day.
Or telling them how much you appreciate them making dinner or taking out the trash.
And it's not just about saying the words, it's about the tone and the sincerity behind them.
Absolutely, like saying, oh, you cleaned the bathroom, that's so thoughtful, in a sarcastic tone isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, it's got to be genuine.
Right, and the book gives this great example of a woman named Allison whose husband Keith was constantly praising her writing abilities.
Oh.
And his encouragement gave her the confidence to pursue her writing career.
Wow, so his words of affirmation literally helped her achieve her dreams.
They did, and for someone whose love language is words, hearing those affirmations can be incredibly powerful.
It's like fuel for their soul.
Exactly, and on the flip side, not hearing those affirmations can be really damaging, even if you're showing love in other ways.
Like if you're doing all sorts of acts of service, but never actually saying, I appreciate you.
It can feel like your efforts are going unnoticed.
Okay, so words of affirmation, check.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, quality time.
Awesome. So quality time is pretty self-explanatory, right?
Spending time together.
Yes, but it's not just about being in the same room. It's about being present and engaged.
Like putting down your phone, turning off the TV, and actually focusing on each other.
Exactly. The book talks about the importance of quality conversation, really listening to your partner and sharing your own thoughts and feelings.
It's about creating that space for deep connection.
And it's also about engaging in shared activities, things you both enjoy doing together.
Like going for walks or cooking dinner together or even just cuddling on the couch and watching a movie.
The key is to be fully present and to make your partner feel like they're the most important person in the room.
Because sometimes just being there isn't enough. You have to be all there.
Exactly. And the source material suggests that couples aim for a minimum daily requirement of at least 3 significant events shared from each person's day.
So basically taking a few minutes to connect and talk about your day.
Yes, and to share your feelings about those events.
It's like a daily check-in to stay emotionally connected.
And in addition to conversation, quality time also involves doing things together.
Like planning weekend getaways, going to concerts, trying new restaurants.
The book even suggests having regular, let's review our history evenings where you reminisce about your relationship.
Oh, that's cute.
It's all about creating shared experiences and memories.
Okay, moving on to love language number 3, receiving gifts.
Yes. Now, this one sometimes gets a bad rap.
People think it's materialistic.
Right, but it's not about the monetary value of the gift. It's about the thought behind it.
It's about your partner taking the time and effort to find something that they know you'll love.
And the source material points out that gift giving is a universal expression of love across cultures.
It's like a tangible symbol of affection.
Exactly, and it doesn't have to be expensive or elaborate.
A single flower, a handwritten card, even a found object that reminds you of your partner.
It's the thought that counts.
And for someone whose love language is receiving gifts, these gestures speak volumes.
It shows them that you're thinking about them and that you care.
The book shares this great story about a man named Doug who realized his wife Kate's love language was receiving gifts.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Well, for years, he had neglected this aspect of their relationship and their marriage was suffering. But then he started making an effort to bring her little gifts, and her whole attitude changed.
Seriously, just from receiving gifts?
Yeah, she felt loved and appreciated, and their relationship started to thrive again.
That's amazing. And the book gives tons of practical gift-giving ideas.
Like what?
Everything from creating a parade of gifts for special occasions to finding natural gifts like seashells or pretty rocks.
And handmade gifts are always special.
Definitely, they show that you put your heart and soul into it.
The book also suggests keeping a gift idea notebook to jot down things your partner mentions wanting.
That's so smart.
It is, because then you always have ideas for birthdays or anniversaries.
Okay, up next we have acts of service.
This is my love language.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel so loved when my partner does things to help me out around the house.
Like doing the dishes or folding the laundry.
Exactly. Or even just taking out the trash without me having to ask.
It's those little acts of service that show you care.
And the book has this great story about a couple named Mark and Mary.
Tell me about it.
So during their courtship, Mark was constantly doing things for Mary, helping her with chores, driving her places, even accompanying her to church.
Oh, that's sweet.
It was. And Mary felt incredibly loved and cared for.
But then what happened?
Well, after they got married, Mark kind of stopped doing those things.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he assumed that Mary would just naturally take on more of the traditional homemaker role.
And Mary felt neglected.
Exactly. She felt like Mark didn't appreciate her anymore.
And this highlights a really important point that love is a choice. It's not something you can demand or expect.
Right. You can't just assume your partner will automatically know how to love you in the way you need to be loved.
And the source material emphasizes that requests are much more effective than demands.
Like, instead of saying, you never helped me around the house.
You could say, hey, honey, would you mind doing the dishes tonight? I'd really appreciate it.
And the book suggests making a list of specific requests for your partner.
That's a great idea. Then there's no confusion about what needs to be done.
And it takes the guesswork out of showing love through acts of service.
And the source material also points out that those nagging comments we sometimes make are often disguised pleas for love in the acts of service language.
It's like saying, I feel unloved because you're not helping me.
Exactly. So instead of nagging, try reframing your requests in a more positive way.
Like, I would feel so loved and appreciated if you could help me with this.
Much better.
Okay, and last but not least, physical touch.
This is another one that can sometimes be misinterpreted.
People think it's all about sex.
Right, but it's much broader than that.
It's about any form of affectionate physical contact.
Holding hands, hugging, kissing, cuddling back rubs, even just a quick touch on the arm as you walk by.
It's about that physical connection that can create a sense of closeness and intimacy.
And for someone whose love language is physical touch, these gestures are incredibly meaningful.
It makes them feel loved and cherished.
The source material tells the story of a couple named Pete and Patsy.
Oh, what happened with them?
Well, Pete's primary love language was physical touch, while Patsy's was quality time.
Oh, so they were speaking different languages.
Exactly, and this led to a lot of misunderstandings and hurt feelings.
How so?
Well, Pete felt constantly rejected because Patsy wasn't initiating physical affection as much as he needed.
while Patsy felt like Pete wasn't giving her enough attention.
Right, she was showing her love through quality time by spending time with him talking to him, but it wasn't what Pete needed.
So they were both trying to show love, but it wasn't landing.
Exactly. And the source material emphasizes that neglecting physical touch can be incredibly damaging to a relationship, especially for someone whose primary love language is touch.
It can make them feel unloved, unwanted, even resentful.
And it's important to remember that physical touch encompasses a wide range of gestures.
It's not just about sex.
Right. It can be something as simple as holding hands while you're walking or giving your partner a hug when they're feeling stressed.
And it's important to talk to your partner about what kind of touch they enjoy.
Absolutely, communication is key.
So we've covered all 5 love languages. Now the big question is, how do you figure out your own love language and your partner's?
Right, because it's not like we're born with a label that says my love language is words of affirmation.
Exactly. So how do we crack the code?
Well, the book provides several helpful strategies.
Like what?
One of the most effective is to simply ask yourself what makes you feel most loved and appreciated.
So think about those times when you felt really connected to your partner.
Right, what were they doing or saying?
And also pay attention to what makes you feel unloved or unimportant.
Those are valuable clues.
The book also suggests observing how your partner expresses love.
What do they do naturally without even thinking about it?
And what do they complain about or request most often?
Those are often indicators of their primary love language.
Like if they're always saying, we never spend any time together,
Quality time might be their love language.
or if they're constantly asking for back rubs,
Physical touch could be their thing.
makes sense. And the source material also mentions a tool called the 5 Love Languages Profile.
Oh, yeah, it's a questionnaire that can help you identify your love language more objectively.
And there are resources online where you can take it for free.
So it's really accessible.
But ultimately, the most important thing is to talk to your partner about it.
Have an open and honest conversation about what makes each of you feel loved.
Because once you understand each other's love languages, you can start speaking them fluently.
And that's when the magic really happens.
Now, this brings up a really interesting question.
What's that?
What if you're feeling hurt or angry with your partner?
Like you're not exactly feeling loving towards them.
Exactly. How do you speak their love language when you're in that headspace?
That's a tough one. But the source material emphasizes that love is a choice.
It's not just a feeling.
Right. It's an action, a decision we make to behave in a loving way, even when our emotions aren't cooperating.
So even if you're feeling resentful or distant,
Yeah.
you can still choose to do something kind for your partner.
And the book shares this incredible story about a couple named Brent and Becky.
Oh, tell me about them.
So their marriage was on the rocks. They were constantly fighting and considering divorce.
Sounds rough.
It was, but then they learned about the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
And they started making a conscious effort to speak each other's love language even when they didn't feel like it.
So they're faking it.
Not exactly. It's more about aligning your actions with your values.
Like choosing to behave in a loving way, even when you're not feeling it.
Precisely. And the amazing thing is that it worked. Brent and Becky's marriage completely turned around.
Just from speaking each other's love languages.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they rediscovered the love they thought was lost.
Wow, that's powerful. And the source material directly addresses the common concern that some people have.
Which is...
What if my partner's love language just doesn't come naturally to me?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
And the answer is so simple, but so profound.
What is it?
So,
Seriously?
yeah, the author basically says, look, if you love your partner, you'll make the effort to learn their love language, even if it feels awkward or uncomfortable at first. It's like learning any new skill. It takes practice and dedication.
And the rewards are so worth it.
Absolutely. And the source material also points out that either partner can initiate this process.
It doesn't have to be a mutual decision.
Right. One person can start speaking their partner's love language, and often that's enough to create a positive shift in the relationship.
Because actions speak louder than words.
They do. Okay, so we've talked a lot about love and love languages, but how does this all tie into our other emotional needs?
That's a great question, and the source material addresses this directly.
Okay, so what's the connection?
Well, the book explains that while love isn't the only emotional need we have...
Right. We also need security, significance, purpose.
Exactly, but love has a huge impact on all of those other needs. Well, when we feel loved and cherished, it creates a sense of security and belonging.
It makes us feel safe and valued.
And that, in turn, boosts our self-esteem and makes us feel more significant.
So love is kind of like the foundation for all those other emotional needs.
Exactly. And the book gives this poignant example of a couple named John and Susan.
Tell me about them.
They had been married for 35 years, but their relationship had become stale.
Like they were just going through the motions.
Yeah, and Susan was feeling deeply unloved.
Poor Susan.
But then John discovered that Susan's primary love language was quality time.
Oh,
And he started making a conscious effort to spend more time with her, really listening to her and engaging in activities they both enjoyed.
and did it work?
It did. Susan felt loved and appreciated again, and their relationship was rekindled.
So even after 35 years, they were able to reignite the spark.
Exactly. It's never too late to learn and speak your partner's love language.
Yeah, our sources also touch on a really tough question.
What's that?
Can you love someone you hate?
Oh.
It is, and the book shares the author's own personal experience of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the early years of his marriage, he went through a period where he had a lot of negative feelings towards his wife.
But he stayed in the marriage.
He did, and he made a conscious choice to act lovingly towards her, even when he didn't feel like it.
Wow, that takes a lot of strength.
It does, and the source material also presents a case study of a woman named Anne.
What was her story?
Well, she was deeply unhappy in her marriage, and all of her friends were telling her to leave.
But she didn't.
No, she felt conflicted because of her religious beliefs, and she also didn't want to give up on the marriage entirely.
So what does she do?
Well, the book suggests a 6-month experiment.
What's that?
Basically, it's about making a conscious choice to act lovingly towards your spouse for 6 months, even if you're feeling negative emotions.
So it's like a test run for love.
Kind of the idea is to focus on the actions of love rather than the feelings.
So it's not about pretending to feel something you don't.
Right, it's about choosing to behave in a loving way even when it's hard.
And the hope is that over time, those loving actions will start to change the dynamic of the relationship.
And potentially even rekindle the love that's been buried under all the negativity.
It's a powerful concept, and it's not always easy.
Definitely. But it's worth considering if you're struggling in your marriage.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 5 love languages, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest one is that understanding and speaking your partner's love language can be absolutely transformative for your relationship.
It can create a deeper sense of connection, intimacy, and love.
And it can help you overcome conflict and build a stronger, more fulfilling partnership.
So we encourage you to take some time to reflect on the 5 love languages we discussed.
Think about what makes you feel most loved and appreciated, and pay attention to how your partner expresses love.
And don't be afraid to have an open and honest conversation with your partner about your love languages.
Because communication is key.
It is. And remember, love is a choice. It's an action, a decision we make every day to show up for our partner in a way that speaks to their heart.
And even if it feels awkward or uncomfortable at first, keep practicing, keep learning, keep speaking your partner's love language.
Because the rewards are immeasurable.
So that's it for today's deep dive into the 5 love languages.
We hope you found it insightful and helpful.
And remember, the journey to a more loving and fulfilling relationship starts with understanding and speaking the language of love.
So go out there and start speaking your partner's language today.
Until next time.